It's time.
We're not doing readings, but you can call in for all sorts of other things.
Your show will go live in 5 seconds. 4, 3, 2,
Hi, everyone.
Love Talk Radio.
Welcome to Lilydale Radio, featuring topics about spiritualism, mediumship, healing, spirituality, and the Lilydale Assembly, the world's largest center for the religion, philosophy, and science of spiritualism. This is Lilydale Radio.
Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Wednesdays with Willa. I am your host, Willa White, and I have as my guest today, Lisa Williams.
Hi, how are you? It's
Doing
great
well.
to be here. It really is.
We're actually broadcasting in 3 different ways today. for those of you who are watching on my Facebook page, that's Willa White Medium, and that's where I usually do my show from. But then Lisa Williams is also broadcasting live on her Facebook page, so double time on that.
I know, I thought, why not?
And then also through the Lilydale Radio Blog Talk Radio site. So if you're interested in, you can tune in regularly on Wednesday mornings at 10 a.m. for my show. I have different guests on. Every week I have a different topic that we're covering and questions that we answer. And it's a real fun time to kind of explore different aspects of spirituality, mediumship, faith, family. And so it's a great platform for that.
And we matched today.
We do. I
It
like
wasn't
matching.
planned. I'm going to tell you, it wasn't planned. Yeah, we match.
We do, which is a good thing.
It's great.
So for today, our topic is mediumship around the world. And so we'll be covering different mediumship styles. Lisa, being an international medium, has traveled all over the world. And you've personally seen different styles.
Yep.
And we'll be able to talk about that. And if you have questions about our topic today, you can call in. The call-in number is 818-739-8818. Again, 818-739-8818. So that's the way to call in. We aren't doing readings today.
No reading.
No readings.
No.
We're just covering this topic and sharing with all of you so you can have a better sense of the different styles that are out there, different methods, techniques that people are using, and it's an exciting topic. So I think also keep in mind that Lisa is the Vice President of the Lilydale Assembly.
I am. It's I got to say something to this. When I first came here 8 years ago, I think it was 9 years ago now, I walked into this tiny little village, and I didn't know what I was walking into. I felt like I've been thrown back into sort of like the 1800s.
You have been.
I know, I really have been. From this girl from LA, and then from previously from England, and here I am. And everyone was so lovely. And I said to myself, I was like, oh God, I'd hate to live here. I would hate to live here. I couldn't live here. I couldn't live here. And then the more I came back, the more I was like, oh, I really love it. Maybe I'll buy a house. It was so funny. And then I remember one year coming in and saying, you know what, I think I'm going to buy a house. I think I'm going to buy a house. Next thing I know, I'm buying a house.
Yes.
And everyone was saying, don't get involved in the politics, don't get involved. And here I am, Vice President.
Oh, yes, she's in the very thick
I'm
of
in
it.
the politics.
And, we're really trying to help bring Lilydale forward even more.
Yeah.
Lisa has a really good background in marketing, but also understanding how to put that best foot forward.
Yeah,
So,
do my best.
We know she's become a champion of Lilydale, and we appreciate that.
Thanks. Yeah, I love Lilydale, and honestly, as much as I said I wouldn't never live here, now I couldn't imagine living anywhere else because, and I've just got to say this because I'm not a registered medium, so I can say this, but Lilydale is a community where I don't have to live here. I have no reason to live here other than the fact I just love it. I absolutely love it. And it's a community of faith, it's a community of religion, it's a community of spiritualism, it's a community of just goodness. We all have our issues. I mean, come on, you can't always like everybody, you know, but we all pull together.
Yes.
And that's the thing, we have difference of opinion, but you know what? That's important in a place like this because we grow together as a community, whether we have difference of opinion or not. But we all tend to come together on the main topics.
Yes.
It's like spiritualism we come together with, mediumship. You know, just because I don't like my neighbour's garden doesn't necessarily mean I don't like him, you know. But it is, we do come together, and it's just the most amazing place that I've ever lived. And I've had, you have no idea, I've had 14 homes in 12 years.
No.
Yeah, no, imagine that, 14 homes in 12 years. So this is a place that I was constantly searching to try and find home in America. And here's my home.
Well, they say one of the most important things you can find in your life is your spiritual home.
Wow, here it is.
So
Here it is.
a lot of people, when they come through the gates of Lilydale, they feel peace.
Yeah.
They feel happiness here, and they feel that they're on the brink of understanding something deeper within themselves, their divine self.
Yeah, it's amazing. It really is.
It really is.
We've got an awful angle on my but never mind.
We're kind of going back and forth.
We're going
Mine
back
is
and forth.
taller,
We'll
and
focus on
Lisa's
yours,
is
Yours is much nicer angle.
we'll do both. So today, as I said, our focus is on mediumship around the world. So let's start talking about the differences that are out there. You travel to a lot of different countries, and there is the American style. So why don't we start with the American style?
Okay, so it's funny, I'm talking about this in the program this year. We're doing a Mediumship Around the World week in Lilydale.
There you go. Look forward to that.
Which I think is the second week of July, something like that. I should know the program off by heart right now.
That's another thing that Lisa has been taking hold of.
Like I said, I should know it. But so actually, American style, I found is very heavy message based. So there's a lot of, while evidence is primary to identify the spirit, which is great because obviously we need to understand who the spirit is. You can't just say, hey, I've got your grandmother here and she tells you this. There has to be some identifying factors. I have found that American style mediumship is heavy message based, and which is really great because it's great. I know who my loved ones are. You don't need to tell me the name, the address, the telephone number. I know that.
Yes.
All right. You don't have to do the proof in that respect. Yes, it's great to know what they look like, what they pass with, and some identifying factors. But sometimes I just need my loved ones to tell me whether I'm dating the right guy or not.
Well,
Because I've had my problems.
All they can offer is their opinion, though.
Correct. They can.
Your life is in your hands, and you make your
That's
decisions
right.
accordingly.
But I would love my grandmother to tell me, oh, I kind of like him or kind of don't. See, I always used to go to my grandfather for everything. So my grandfather was the person that I would go to, hey, I'm changing my job, what do you think? And although he would only give me his advice, he would never tell me what to do. So it's funny. So I actually find that more American style mediumship, and I'm talking in general, I'm not talking Lilydale, I'm talking in general, there's evidence, there's more message in that respect. But I find sometimes the message is evidential too.
Yes.
Because when someone says to me, your grandfather is saying, oh, well, you know what, the guy that you're dating, the job that you're doing, or whatever it is, I'd be like, now I know it's my grandfather because he would always come across it in that way.
Because usually, whatever they're an expert in, when they're here on the earth plane, they will continue to be an expert.
Correct.
And you might as well ask them questions.
Correct.
In that vein.
Oh, absolutely.
And, you know, I know in my own mediumship, I do try to be as evidential as possible.
Yes, you are.
And so I feel like I need to bring that proof of spirit first, and then what's the message?
And that's key, because once we have the evidence of spirit, then the message is easy. Because what happens, and I've discovered this, is the more you build up the trust with the client, and that is evidence. Let's face it. That is evidence.
Yes.
Once you bring up that message, once you bring up that evidence to the client and you build up that trust, then they're going to trust the message that you give them as well.
Yes.
And the message, we're never responsible for anyone's life, and this is what I've discovered. Is I say this to people, I'm like, listen, I can't make your decision for you, because trust me, I won't want you to make a decision for me. So I always say that, and I'm like, you can't make a decision for anyone, but just that little piece of almost affirmation. Hey, your mum likes this person, or your dad likes the job, or your dad's saying, be careful of the money because he was an accountant.
Yes.
It just is quite interesting when that happens, because it gives that person comfort to know that they're watching over them during their daily activities, during their daily life.
And I think that that's important to have that message, because it shows that they are present, that they are not dead and gone.
Correct.
That love never dies.
Correct.
Truly. And so as a medium, what I do is I focus on bringing the essence of the spirit through.
And that's
what
important.
it felt like to be them in their skin, and their feelings, possibly physically, that they had going on, but also emotionally, and how they feel about the client.
Yep.
And they may talk about people or situations around them. And I frequently will tell clients, okay, these are their private words for you.
Correct. They're not nothing to do with me.
They would not talk this way in front of those folks. And so they need to be conscious of that too. It is a private, confidential experience.
Yes, it really is. It really is. Which actually is very different to the way that a lot of other people in around the world do it. You see, I'm from England.
Yes. So
let's talk about that. The accent gives it away. But
let's have tea.
Have a cup of tea. You know, just very digress. We often call dinner tea.
Oh, really?
Yeah. What do you want for tea? Oh, yeah. So and it's normally around 6 o'clock. But yeah, it's something that we've done for years. It's weird. And yeah, little tidbit of English there.
I always thought it was like at 3 o'clock or something.
Well, technically it is, but I think us commoners have changed it more.
The commoners.
We're the commoners.
Not the Queen Mother.
Not the Queen. Not the Queen. Although my son drinks tea like that, never mind. But the English style, I digress. The English style, because obviously I'm English, I didn't train in England. I didn't have any form of training. So that I've got to make that very, very clear to people. But I went to the spiritual churches. I went to a lot of spiritual churches, and that's where I learned. And I watched people's styles, and I watched the techniques, and I watched the style, and I watched how it worked. And I found, and over the years, I found it's heavy, heavy, heavy evidence. So, and this is no disrespect any English medium, because I've got to tell you, we've got some phenomenal English mediums, as we have phenomenal American mediums too. So we cannot distinguish the two, but it's just a style. So what happens is, in English, it's hard evidence. Your mum's name is this, she died at this, she worked in this job, she had X amount of children, their names are X. And it's almost, to me, like the bullet points. And it's the bullet points, which is very, very evidential, and it's when it's delivered beautifully, it's like, it's amazing. There's a but with it, though.
Yes.
There is a but for me. And although mediumship in the UK is slowly coming more a little bit message, there isn't really a dynamic message.
Right.
You know, that's what I discovered. There's no real dynamic. The message is probably happy birthday, yeah, she's here, she's moseying around, doing her thing. You know, there's no real
bolstering
solid
up of that person in their life.
Yeah.
Although, you know, when you talk about you had that many children, sometimes Spirit will talk about that in an American style.
Yes, they will.
They'll say, and they're talking about how you have 2 brothers.
Correct.
And, you know, and they'll talk about those brothers.
But with American style, we have that message tag.
Yes.
And that's what I personally try in my own mediumship style, to merge the two. Because I find that when you've got heavy evidence, which is great, but you also have a very heavy message base, you've got the 2 elements, which is actually a merging of the 2 styles.
Yes.
And I feel that in a lot of ways incorporates everything, which I find a lot of the mediums here in Lilydale do. And I know that you do it. Yes. I very much admire you as a medium, as you know. And I do. It's like, I love Willa. but I do. And but I feel that sometimes the English style could take a little bit of American style, and the American style could take a little bit of English style.
And also with the English style, they don't tend to go specifically to a person in public message work.
Yeah, there's a very distinct difference in public message work. So public message work, when it comes to American, obviously we see it at the stump, they go direct to a person. Direct. You know, I'm coming to you in the pink shirt, I'm coming to you with sunglasses on the head, something like this. And so they go direct. With English message work, which I do a bit of both now, we pull in the spirit first, and we then try and match the spirit with the person. And so how I personally work now is I pull the spirit in. I'm like, where are you going? And then I call it my GPS.
Yes.
My GPS will then tell me, I know I'm in this direction. Sometimes my GPS will go round and round in circles, like my driving, you know, and it's like, okay, I'm supposed to be over there, but I'm way over there. But you know, so there is a very distinct difference in that.
I tend not to get any information in advance because I don't want to think about it.
Right.
I don't want my brain starting to
Yeah,
stir
no,
and twirl with any of that. I want it to be spontaneously given in the moment.
And it's important to, yeah.
But with that British style, they're receiving the information and then they start to narrow down and then say who can take this, and then so they might get, you know, 3 or 4,
5.
yes,
Yeah.
and then it narrows down, and finally they get to a person.
There's also a thing that they call in England called stacking, and stacking is where they stack the spirits, which I personally don't agree with, and it's silly, and I don't, but I don't like the stacking, mainly because, again, what you're doing is you're getting the spirits and you're stacking them. You're like, okay, who's next? I am like you. I like to go up there spontaneous.
It can be a bit confusing.
Oh gosh.
For people, you know, as the medium, but then also in the audience.
Yeah, you'll have
is what I've observed.
Yeah, you'll have them all talking to, and then it's like you're trying to narrow it down. So what I feel is that when we get it, let's say we're talking at the stump.
Yes.
All right, inspiration stump. So we are there at the stump. I've noticed some English style mediums getting them when, you know, when the bench is at the back.
Yes.
You know, I've noticed them all getting them the messages. Okay, yeah, and I'm like, what are you doing? And they're all stacking the spirits.
Yes.
And where I would rather go down, stand at the stump, breathe, because breath work is super, super important.
Yes.
Breathe, and then I'm like, okay, now I bring that spirit in. Okay, where am I going? Or I've been known to go direct because I like to be diverse in both ways. I always say I can't do the American style, but I can really. And I like it, you know, I do like it, but I like to test myself. And I think it's really important as a medium to continue to test yourself, where I do big shows and I'm like, okay, so I've got the spirit, now let me find the person, you know, so I like to do it that way.
Do you feel that you're finding them through your clairsentience? How are you finding them when you do your GPS? This is a question.
It's interesting
how you feel
because for me, I come from my solar plexus area.
So that would be clairsentience.
And it's my clairsentience, and I'm just dragged. But
that's how it is for me too. It's like boom, I just know them, and it just lights up.
And then I sometimes see sparks coming off the top of the head. You know, and so again in the English style mediumship, where I'll go, okay, I got this person, and I can have 4 people. I'm like, no, I know it's you. And they're like, no, it's us, and I'm like, no, it's her, because the lights come off the top of the head. You know, and that's how it comes for me.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So those are the main similarities and differences between the British and American style.
We also have Australian.
Yes, let's talk about Australians.
So
How do they do it?
I spend a lot of time in Australia, and they have a lot of English style. They have a lot of English mediums over there, because obviously we're in a British colony. Yes. But with the English style, so obviously they're very heavy evidence based. But again, with teachers such as myself and other American teachers that they're starting to infiltrate, and also the Australians are coming here.
Yes.
I know a friend of mine brings a whole group of Australians over here in the summer. They're starting again. It's starting to infiltrate. So the merging of the two styles is happening. But previously, it's been heavy and English based. It really has.
Of course.
Naturally.
That's the motherland.
It's the motherland, you know. But the Norwegians, let's talk Norway here. All right, let's go diverse.
But before we do, may I ask, as far as the Maori culture and the Aboriginal the Aboriginal culture, has that influenced mediumship in Australia?
You know, it really has. The Maori culture over, you know, with New Zealand and the Aboriginals in Australia, it really has changed.
In what way have you noticed this?
I've noticed it because, you know, obviously the natives are very, very spiritual.
Yes.
You know, they are hugely, hugely spiritual. With regards to the mediumship, it's almost like the mediumship in the way that we do it is not recognized. It's almost like, oh yeah, I know your mum's here. Oh, yeah.
No big deal.
It's
It's
no
normal.
big deal.
It's
It's
natural,
normal.
as it should be.
Yeah.
As it should be.
It's like, what do you mean? I just rub this on your hand. Come on, it'll heal you. Fine. And it's amazing that healing, their healing techniques and their mediumship. It's so inbred within them. It's just normal.
Yes.
It's so I mean, spirit, everything. It's just so easy for them. There's been no for them. There's been no distinguishing between the two elements,
Yes.
and it's been quite interesting to see that. It's just been whatever. It's like walking into Lilydale. It's like, here we are, we're in Spirit Land. So it's been quite it's very different in those countries because it is so open. Yet interestingly enough, in England, we're so stiff upper lipped and British culture, my mum still hugs, tapping my back sometimes. I love you, mum, because I know that she'll probably be watching. But, the stiff upper lip is very, we don't want to get too private. And I think that's one of the reasons why, and I'm just talking from my own personal opinion.
I think you're right about that. Because there's more of a reserved.
And I think from my personal opinion, again, my own personal opinion, it's not anyone else's, is that's the reason why the style is the way it is, because it's almost bullet. There is no
Americans aren't as scared of feelings.
Yeah, we're all about give me a hug. I cuss myself, I'm American now, but
You've been here a long time.
I've been here 12 years almost. So it's like we hug and we have no problem in getting onto that intimate level with someone and discussing the private stuff. Where England is like, let's sweep it under the carpet, darling. So, and again, the Australians have a little bit of that somewhat, but again, they're more open.
Yes.
And I'm not saying that about general English people, but it's become, English society has become a lot more open now, certainly with the infiltration of American TV. And my mediumship...
What is infiltration?
Yeah, it is infiltration. But over the years, I mean, I come from my grandmother was a British medium, so I come from a very hard background of that. Certainly back in the 70s and the 80s, that's how it was. But now it's become a little bit more easygoing and laid back.
Yes.
Yes. But the Norwegians are interesting.
Let's talk about Norwegians.
I love Norway.
How could you not?
I know, I love Norway. I do. Norway is just, if you've never been there, it's a place that I would certainly recommend you go. But the mediumship, there's not much there, which is interesting, because every time I go there, it's, I walk in the country, it's like this, I don't know, it's like Brad Pitt's walked in. And it's so funny because everybody loves mediumship, but they're scared to do it.
Why?
I think fear of being wrong. I see, and I tell you the reason why, I see this with and again, my personal opinions. I see this with the students that I've taught over there. And every class, whenever you go, you know full well that the classes here are always full. There's a lot of people that come. The Norwegian classes are 5, 6, 8 people.
Because they're just toe dipping.
They're toe dipping.
Yes.
And again, it goes back into that. Again, they're very reserved people. Very private people. So digging into someone's life is alien to them. They don't want to. And also they come from they're perfect people in my world. No, seriously, they really are. I love Norway.
Perfect.
They're perfect. Everything it has, there's an expectation in Norway. There's definitely an expectation on the society. Because of, maybe it's the way that they are, maybe it's the culture, I don't know, but there's an expectation. And I feel as though that expectation runs through everything that they do, And so fear of being wrong...
That will hold you back in your
hold you
mediumship.
back.
That's an ego space to come from, and it's about trusting spirit.
Correct.
You kind of leap off.
Yep.
And know that you're going to have the safety net of the universe to
That's
catch
right.
you. And that's where it comes from.
They are so spiritual, which is very it's an interesting dynamic, because they are very giving, very heartwarming people, very generous, very caring, very loving, and very spiritual. Yet for them to do this publicly, or to have any form of trust in that, there's that guard.
Yes.
And
yes.
and again, that goes. It's becoming a little bit more open now. Certainly, with again different teachers going in, and they're close to Arthur Findlay
The world
College.
is changing.
Yes.
People are not as private as they once were,
No.
universally speaking.
Yeah, it's true. It's very true.
People are, they're sharing every little tidbit of their lives, which is, no.
Everyone's
not my
blogging,
thing.
Facebook.
Yeah, and so I think the world is changing in that
Mm-hmm.
regard, and that will probably change the depth of mediumship in different countries.
Yeah, and I feel that over the time, certainly as I've been here, I've been doing mediumship over 20 years, and I've noticed it change dramatically over that time, and it's morphed. It morphs, and you change. The way that you do your mediumship naturally changes, and it suits the what's going on in your life at the time. We change.
But also you we get very strong in your understanding of how you receive
Correct.
information
Yeah.
from spirits.
Yeah, you do.
The shorthand, it becomes automatic,
Yeah, it does. It does.
which is nice.
And it's great. So I feel as though sort of the European countries are a little bit reserved.
Yes. What other countries did you want to talk about, or other spaces?
Well, there's obviously the eastern, the
Okay.
eastern side. So
Let's
we've got
talk
Japan,
about the
we've got China, Korea. I have a lot of clients from Korea and China, and yet, certainly with Japan. Let's talk Japan. Japan is overwhelmingly spiritual. It's overwhelmingly spiritual. There's spiritual practices. There's all of these.
The rituals.
The rituals. They have a lot of rituals that go on. A lot of meditation. They teach meditation in schools. They do all of this. And again, we don't hear about mediumship.
You're right.
We don't hear about yet. It goes back to like the Aborigines. Yeah, I see spirit. But it's interesting because I found that in Japan, and again, I'm not limiting those countries, but that surrounding area, Japan, China, Malaysia, all around that area, Thailand, Far East, I found that they're so like, well, tell me what's happening in my life. They're more on the psychic.
They're more on the psychic.
They're more psychic.
desire.
They don't care about the media.
I think that they have gotten used to connecting with their ancestors.
Correct, yes.
They keep those kind of rituals of connection with the ancestors deep in the culture.
Yep.
But yes, the psychic thing.
They're all psychic.
And that's not really what we focus on
No,
as mediums.
no,
even
it's
though
not.
there's a message or possible opinion
Yeah.
shared from a spirit
Yeah.
loved one. But it is a different way of working.
It is, and I have to adapt. So I have a client, or several clients that come from China, and they're saying, well, that's great, I've got my grandmother, great, okay. And they almost want to shove them off. And they're saying, but who is my next boyfriend? Where does he work? Is he married? Has he got a girlfriend now? I'm like, oh my gosh.
Yeah, that's not the focus. Here in Lilydale, at least, that's not the focus. Psychic message work is not our focus. We don't do tarot, tea leaves, palm readings, anything like that. People have free will, and they manifest their destiny. And I've explained to people that the future is like looking at the branches of a tree, and one set of branches is more highlighted than the rest, and as a possible big-time probability path. But you have to make a choice, and then once you do, more branches come off.
I use that exact analogy. I've
do?
never heard you say that, and I use that exact
That's how
analogy.
I've been explaining to it for years.
Me too. I said your life is like a tree. You're the tree trunk. You grow and you decide which branch you're going to climb.
Yes. Yes.
Ta-da! Isn't that funny? Yeah, it's true. But it is so true because we can't let spirit direct our pathway.
True.
We can't. But we can be guided by spirit.
Yes.
And I know full well that in my life that spirit has guided me in a direction, and had I not listened to them, I probably would be somewhere else. However I did. And yes, they taught me some really not so nice lessons, but I think I would have got to that lesson a lot slower had I ignored them.
Yes.
And things would have been put in my face and I would have actually changed it. Sure.
So I want to say, if anyone wants to call in, we don't have much time left on the show.
Sorry,
but
I talk.
But that's the point. that's what happens every time. So I want to say, if you want to call in with a question about mediumship around the world and styles, you can call in 818-739-8818. We aren't doing readings, but if you have a question about that, we can certainly take your call. And I'm going to take caller ending in 4977. Again, caller ending in 4977. And welcome to the show. Hello, and welcome to the show.
Good morning.
What's your name and where are you calling from?
Evelyn from Arizona.
Evelyn from Arizona. What's your question today about mediumship around the world?
Oh, I was just listening, but I guess I could have a question that would imply that when you are in the medium realm of talking to deceased loved ones, do they actually know if you're on your right path? And are they able to, when you do ask questions, are they able to know or understand what you're doing?
They can absolutely confirm about things regarding your path, things that they've observed, and they can offer their opinions.
Yeah, I always say it's their opinions that they give
Yes.
you. I always say, listen, if you, and this is how I always refer to it, if your dad was married 8 times, are you going to take relationship advice from him? That's how I always refer to it.
They can learn.
They do.
They can learn, but by and large, you need to listen to your own soul. And I think that's another aspect of mediumship, is it helps people understand that you do not die.
That's right.
And
Yeah.
they start to cultivate their connection with their own soul and God. And then they ask their soul that question
Yep.
about their path and their life journey. And that's ultimately the most important thing to be listening to. And I tell people it's not about ask the audience.
It's not. It isn't us, the audience. You're right.
It's it's not. You can phone a friend all you want about these things, but you have to make the decision. So frequently they will confirm, "Hey, I just noticed you moved."
And I love the house.
Yes, and they'll talk about they sometimes will show me parts of the house, or they'll talk about a scuffle that's going on with the sister, or what's going on with their children.
Yep, that's right.
And it's their way of showing that they're around and that they still care and they're
Yeah.
involved.
Yeah, definitely. And I think it's important for us left that we get some communication that they're still watching over us. So
Yes.
I think it's important.
Absolutely.
So yeah.
Well, thank you for that question, Evelyn. We appreciate you calling in today.
Oh, thank you.
And so I want to take the next caller,
Sure.
ending in 1945. Again, 1945. Hello and welcome to the show. Hello? Are you there? Oh, I don't hear anything. We'll go to the next caller then. Caller ending in 1611. Again, caller ending in 1611. Hello, welcome to the show.
Oh.
Can you hear us? Oh. Well, I don't know quite what's going on with that, but
Spirit.
Spirit.
I love Spirit, honestly.
So, as I said, we don't have much time left, but I think people need to understand the difference between psychic and
Yes.
and that can be a confusing thing for people. So, they can become more educated about the aspects of divination.
Yeah.
That go with this.
Definitely.
And so it's shows like your show and other people, what I call them celebrity mediums.
Yeah.
That's you guys. Which, right? So you are.
Yeah.
People, a lot of people know you.
That's right. They do. Yeah, a lot of people do.
Famous. And so you help to educate people.
Yeah, and I think it's important to understand, certainly when people come to Lilydale, the difference of psychic and medium, because the mediums here just do mediumship. There's no psychic element in it,
Right.
Although spirit can offer the advice, but that's it.
Yes.
And I there is a significant difference.
Yes.
And I also feel, and there are some extraordinary psychics out there. absolutely extraordinary, that will pick up on spirit and a psychic capacity by reading the aura. So I always say there is a difference. I always say that if you want a mediumship reading, is to make sure that the person is connecting direct to spirit, not reading your memories.
Yes.
And which is also psychic. So it's a fine line, and it's very hard to distinguish between that.
But you learn the difference. For me, it's a different sensation of energy.
Correct. Yes.
For it, so I know the vibrational difference on how I'm receiving it.
But you do, because you're very authentic. All right, I'm just going to tell you, Willa's one of the authentic mediums I know. But not every, and I just want to address this. Not every medium, and again, I talk worldwide. I don't talk Lilydale, because if you come into Lilydale, you have to be a member of a church. You have to have the religion. La la la. So Lilydale is out of this equation. But in a lot of mediumship, you can be a connector, a conduit for spirit, but you don't necessarily have to be spiritual. And there is very few outside of Lilydale spiritual practices that go on within the mediumship. And certainly as someone who has travelled worldwide teaching, I've noticed that their own spiritual practice isn't there. So when I start the course, which is 12 weeks prior to me getting there, I take them off Facebook, I take them off all of their social media, I take them off websites, I'm horrible.
I'm an unplugged kind of person.
I take them off it all. They
So,
meditate.
I love that.
Yeah. All of this
No
stuff.
TV, right?
No TV.
Yes.
No TV. No novels either. I get them out of reading books. No movies, no nothing. All right. And so I get rid of all of that, and I bring them back to basics, because that's how we learnt. And I know you're very active in this with regards to children, taking the children out, teaching them, rather than sitting in front of an iPad, because they lose that connectivity. And so it's about teaching. It's sometimes about bringing people back into that spiritual aspect and bringing them back into that connectivity, because we're losing that connection with people through media and bits and pieces, which obviously we're using now.
Which is one of the things I was so nervous about doing.
Yeah,
with all
I
of
know.
This. I don't want to get sucked in.
Yeah, I know. But there's balance. It's balance. So I do find that the sort of going outside with regards to mediumship, there has to be a spiritual practice that comes along with it. I'm not saying you have to sit at the top of a tree and meditate every day, but it's important to come with that spiritual aspect, that mindset.
Sacred.
It's very, very,
Mediumship
very sacred.
is a sacred. It can be a fun experience.
Oh, yeah.
But it's sacred, and it needs to come from that place. It
really does.
Where prayer is part of mediumship, so that you're in the higher space when you're serving. Oh goodness, time goes so fast. Any other places you want to talk about? I know we're going to have the Spiritists here again this year, and they have a different way of doing mediumship.
They do.
From spiritualism, and I think I'm going to do a show about that.
Oh, you are?
Yes.
That's fantastic.
So people can be educated as far as the differences of all of that. But have you had any connections with any of that yourself?
Well, the Spiritists, I haven't had direct connection. And in fact, I'm really looking forward to them coming this year. But it's interesting because I get all my teachers to read the Spirit book by Allan Kardec, which is where Spiritism started. So I make them understand the difference.
Yes, because they connect with spirit too.
They still connect with spirit,
different.
but in just a different way.
Yes.
So I make sure that I'm very adversed in various different ways of communicating with, like your mum, spirit art. Her artwork is. You walk into her mum's house, it's like this art gallery. It's just stunning. It's like, oh my god, I wish I could paint like that. But there's various different ways. So I try to help people incorporate their own talents into mediumship.
Yes.
So I was a singer. So by using music, especially, by using artwork. My son's an artist, and obviously your mum is. Whatever practice that you can do, it's about bringing what's important to you to life through mediumship, because you're only going to channel people who are like-minded like you sometimes.
Well, not necessarily.
No, not necessarily.
I would say majority of the time, yes, but the way I look at it is they're kind of like characters in a book.
Oh yeah, they are.
And so even if I haven't had that personal experience, I can understand it on
Yeah.
that level, just like if you were reading a book.
Totally.
And, you fell in love with a character.
Totally.
Even if they're not the nicest person,
Yeah.
you can find something about them that's interesting, that's
You have to.
fascinating.
Yeah.
And so you're telling a story when you're in a mediumship
That's who
reading.
you are. You're telling a story.
You're telling a story about what they felt, what they lived.
That's right. Yes, you
and
are.
how they're proceeding with
Yeah.
life.
Well, my brain was thinking about the trance.
Okay.
You know,
trance.
'cause my
Yeah,
brain
that's
started
different.
thinking trance because I, when we bring in the trance side, you often bring in that element of things that you know.
Right.
But you're right, because you bring in characters of a book. And I cannot tell, I've never done drugs in my life, but I cannot tell you how many drug addicts have come in. I'm like, oh, is that what it feels like to be high?
Yes. I haven't either. I'm a purist about these
Yeah.
things. And when I feel it, I'm like, oh,
I know, it's so disgusting. It's so funny, but I get a lot of alcoholics that come through
Yeah.
who are hilarious.
Right.
Today
I have that side to them.
you do. I mean, today I had this one client just before a reading, and I'm like, oh my God, he's still chained. He's quite happy. His wife can stay there. He's still chatting at the women over there. I'm like, oh gosh, did I say that? Because he was an absolute womanizer.
Yes.
But
That'll come through.
It was so funny how they they start talking.
Well, it's their personality.
Oh, I love it.
And that continues
Yeah.
on. And that's part of the fun, to
Yeah.
see what emerges in
Definitely.
Because you don't know. So there's a lot that I don't understand
No, me
that
either.
comes through that is not part of my experience
Yeah.
whatsoever.
Yeah.
And I try to understand some of these people.
But you can't. You just have to give it.
But, along the lines of understanding, even if it's outside of your experience or inside your experience, let's say someone has a medical background, it's
Yeah.
very possible that they would be able to say, and this particular aortic valve was
Yeah.
a problem with this person. They could get really very specific if
Yeah.
they wanted to, because they've already had that background.
That's right. Yeah, it's funny because back in England, again going back to the direct how they deliver messages, I trained a postman, and a postman obviously knew everybody's name, everybody's address. So he was so great at getting names and address and telephone numbers because he
amazing.
was conditioned.
Yeah, that was the way
It
his
was
mind
his
worked.
brain conditioning, and so it was quite interesting, really.
Yeah, it's fascinating what everybody can bring to the table in
Yeah.
their mediumship and what can come out more as you learn more.
And it's funny, and I will just, going back into the world, the aspects about the world is, when you travel the world and you travel to different places, you kind of have to understand their way of working. So in Australia, I have to understand how their life is. In America, I have to understand their life. And in England, I had to understand that life. And the same with all over the world. So you kind of have to understand the culture a little bit to then say something. The one thing is the language. And as much as we are all speaking English, I remember being on stage and saying, in England, saying... in America, saying, your father's ashes are in the pot plant. Well, pot plant over in America is obviously marijuana.
Oh, dear.
Well, in England, a pot plant is this plant that you stick on your kitchen sink. So, again, it was a language barrier. Of course, the whole audience was like laughing at these two sisters standing there going, no, we don't smoke weed. But it was the language barrier. So sometimes as a medium, when we travel with the aspects of mediumship, we also
That's
have
funny.
to take in the language barrier as well.
Yes.
It's interesting.
So, I think it's good for people to understand their different styles and techniques
Yeah.
with mediumship. Some of them, different internationally, but by and large, there's a lot of heart that comes across in mediumship, and I think that's the true essence of it.
Yeah.
I want to mention, because I know our time is coming to an end. You have a trance workshop coming up.
It's Friday.
It's this weekend. I don't know if you have tickets
It's fully
still available.
booked.
It's fully booked. So if anybody was interested, too bad.
Well, I'm doing it in the summer. I am doing it in the
Come
summer.
back to Lilydale in the summer.
Come back in the summer. I'm doing forensics in the summer as well. I'm doing my. I'm actually doing a workshop called Intuitive Heart as well. So that's really learning how to connect with your own self.
And I also saw that you're when I walked past the Healing Temple, you're going to be speaking this Sunday.
I am
at the
this
Lilydale
Sunday at the
Spiritualist
Lilydale
Church.
Spiritualist
So
Church too.
Lisa
Yeah.
stays very busy.
I do.
And I'm so glad that you're able to fit time in for today's radio show.
It's my pleasure.
I want to mention that next week's my St. Patrick's Day show, and so we're going to be talking about the visions of St. Patrick and Leprechauns and Fairies. Mandy Shep will be here. She's a Lily Dale librarian. We have amazing books in that library, and she has been able to unearth some very old books that are relating to that topic. So it'll be a great show. The following week after that, Nancy Lombardo's coming, and she is retired police detective, and we're going to talk about law enforcement and intuition. And so I've got a lot of great shows coming forward, but she's had a lot of personal experience working in that world, and I think she's going to have a great discussion with me that day too.
Yeah. Awesome.
Yes, I know. She's great. So tune in Wednesdays with Willa at 10 a.m. And there are other radio shows for Lily Dale. You can check out Colleen Vanderzijden is Tuesdays at 8 o'clock. Wednesday morning with me, 8 p.m. Wednesday with John White, no relation. And Thursday, 10 a.m. with Celeste Elliott. So there are other shows to tune into to enjoy here in Lily Dale. I think that wraps it up. And I really appreciate you being on the show. You're a great guest.
Thank you for having me.
All right, thank you, everyone. Have a wonderful day and enjoy what Spirit has to bring forward in your life. Be blessed.